Hello world of YouTube and welcome to the listening log update for August of 2022. I've got 8 albums on the docket this month that I kept in my rotation at a pretty healthy dosage. Some requests, some catch up, some stuff that was new and poppin', all thrown in the mix as usual. Let's go ahead and get started.
Ripping in the kitchen, ripped it on the cone. I was working on a...
While Lupe Fiasco's most recent album, Drill Music and Zion, was pulled together in 3 days with Soundwave and it was kind of insanely impressive at that, this new Full Court Press album featuring Big KIRT, Smoke DZA, Wiz Khalifa, and Girl Talk on the production, I don't know how long it was pulled together, but it feels more like it was pulled together in like a weekend where all of them rented a studio space and just kind of chopped it up together. And honestly, I kind of enjoy this project. I definitely enjoy it more than at least Big KIRT's last album that came out this year, Digital Roses Don't Die. An album that I still really enjoy, but as far as like pulling together a pocket project, I feel like was restrained too much for how little was actually there. But in the case of this, at least again comparing it to that album, I enjoy this a hell of a lot, and I would say I probably enjoy it about as much as your typical Smoke DZA or Wiz Khalifa project. I think that it's really solid, and I enjoy a lot of what's here. You know, they talk a lot about weed. It's definitely got weed rap jams, which I'm not complaining about, and I think Girl Talk lends some really good production to a lot of that, whether it's creating this lush atmosphere for them to spit over, like on the opener Mind Blown, or on the incredible No Singles. I also think that the last track, Everyday with Currency, has that same kind of touch to it that I think all of them just kind of fit in the groove very snugly to. I also enjoy stuff like the smoother grooves on Revenge of the Cool, which has Big KIRT chopping it up in a way that kind of feels like he would have on his KIRT Is Here album. I also think that the solo track he gave to Big KIRT, Fly the Coop, has that same kind of drop and chop of soul samples that KIRT would have harnessed just as well. I think that by and large, each artist's solo track does a good job at reflecting their own respective vibes, whether it's the very hook-centric Ready for Love, which has some great sample chopping in that, and Wiz Khalifa uses to create a decent hook and a nice little love story, or talking about, you know, that pivotal pivot in a relationship sometimes. And Season with Smoke DZA is just an absolute vibe. I like how he's got this good drop on Put You On, another good track that sees all of them just sort of weaving in and out of the cut massively, like you would see on like an old Beasties project, or even maybe on parts of a Flatbush Zombies project. You know, if we're talking about weed artists coming together and making some just great cuts. You know, this is really solid. I enjoy this a lot. I also love how they pull together some decent hooks by and large. You know, I talked about Ready for Love having a solid enough hook, but I also think How the Story Goes has a really smooth hook. Same with Put You On. I think KIRT's hook on there is pretty good as well. I don't think every hook smashes. I think Ain't No Fun and Everyday, for as much as I like how well they weave around each other on Everyday, a la what you would hear on like a Beasties project on the hook. I don't think the hook is the best on the project. Same with Ain't No Fun. I don't think Ain't No Fun's a bad song, but I think it's one of the weaker hooks on the project. There's just some elements that aren't as strong consistently as others. I think by and large, though, this is still a pretty solid vibe. As a fan of the artists in question on here, one in particular I'm a gigantic fan of. I think all 4 of them come together admirably on this fucking project. And I think if you like relaxing, chill hip-hop with some bangers that crop up in there, I would listen to Full Court Press. It's honestly really fucking solid. I'm giving it a 7 out of 10. It's easily the most solid hip-hop album I've heard all year.
I've been broke like the USA government, put my pipe in my wife right after the covenant.
One of my buddies I work with, Gage, threw me this new Tobe Nwigwe album, moMINTs. An artist that I've seen here and there on the internet, I've never given a full excursion to, but using this as a full-blown jumping on point was pretty nice. I enjoy what this Texan rapper has going on this project. I think the production, by and large, is full of some trunk rattling bangers. You know, it busts down the gate with a 1-2 punch around here. Parts 1 and 2. Tracks that I feel like could have been placed a little differently in the sequencing. The sequencing, by and large, I think is pretty smooth on this record. But there's some parts where it could have been fine-tuned, possibly. But I think that Destructions roll into these just thudding bass kicks, just boom in the best way possible. I think that the drop on Catfish Blackened with Grits is intense. tense and insane. I think the low-key rattling on the Pharrell-produced Lord Forgive Me is also really, really good. And I think Been Broke is a fucking banger as well. I also think Tobe shines in here as a rapper. Whether he's just going at it like on the intro round here where he talks about his come up in Texas, extending that into Get a Little Bag where he talks about the violence he's seen. He gets real gritty with it on Catfish Blackened where he just chops it up. I love how smooth he sounds over Lord Forgive Me, or how fucking just slick he sounds on Destruction. When he comes in with that, I've been in the cut like snip snip, if you hear the gun go click click then you dead. That's cold as hell. And I feel like his verse acts as a good lead-in to Austin from Coast Contra, who just goes off on the fucking beat. I think the collaborations, by and large, are pretty awesome. I love Pharrell's hook on Lord Forgive Me. I love how his wife comes in and chops it up as well, like on Round Here Part 2 and on Lord Forgive Me. I think that she's fantastic on that song. I also think she comes in really smoothly on Get a Little Bag and Big Cap. I feel like Royce da 5'9" is smooth as hell on Head to Hades, and I love the interaction between Foggy Raw and Royce. And 2 Chainz and Chamillionaire and Been Broke also just contribute heavily to that banger. I kind of wish Earth Gang were a little more prominent on Lord Forgive Me because I think they would have worked really well on that beat as a whole. But, you know, it's cool that they got a little nod. Collab in the works. They've done other stuff together. I just kind of wish there were more on this project. And obviously, like I said, I think CeeLo does his thing on Catfish Blackened as well. This project is honestly really fucking good. I think that it's a nice pocket project with a good amount of bangers to non-banger ratio. It's got a good experience. I just kind of wish it were paced a little differently. I kind of wish some of the tracks were organized in a different fashion. The flow of the record isn't awful, but it's a little jerky at some points. And I like a lot of the collaborations. I just think some were a little undercooked. It's still solid though. I'm giving it a 7. It would have been an 8 with a little more refinement, but I think that it's good. I think that it is still a really, really good record and another great release in what's been a pretty good year for hip-hop now, in my opinion.
He's tall, he's lean,
You guys may remember I was a fan of Cheekface's last album. Emphatically no, it was my gateway into the band, and I was kind of surprised to see him on a quick turnaround a little bit, but I love their most recent album, Too Much to Ask, about as much, if not more, than Emphatically No. I enjoy that it does a little more. It bends their sounds into different territories at points, while keeping that self-aware postmodern sort of style of writing and song vocal style that drew me to them in the first place. I like that When Life Hands You Problems just feels like more of what I had gotten last time, with more looks at the now and how really bad it kind of all is. With that being further enhanced on the follow-up song, We Need a Bigger Dumpster. But We Need a Bigger Dumpster sort of showcases a different parallel in their songwriting and even their vocalists' performing style that I didn't really address last time. It felt more obvious to me this time, and that it's definitely like a Jack Stauber style sing-songy storytelling quirkiness that I don't mind Jack Stauber, and I don't mind this band's attempts at it. You know, the groove on tracks like that, and on I Feel So Weird, which has more of a yelping style in pockets of its vocal delivery that I enjoy, and it helps enhance the weird feeling. And the fact that that comes off of the heels of Pledge Drive, a song where their singer Greg Katz adorns a fucking Migos-style triplet flow, and it's fucking great. While I can see some people taking issue with the track like Noodles that's just very repetitions in style, and I would rag on tracks like that if they were done poorly, but a track like Noodles is done fun enough. I also like that this album decides to get groovy in pockets, like on Featured Singer, which has this subject matter of yearning for the life of being a featured singer and being on a popular EDM song that is all about just uplifting people and how just great that would be, while also having Vegan Water as the closer, a track that has some great electronic embellishments amidst the groove there. This album is just really, really good. I enjoy throwing it on and just hanging out to it. It's a nice album that has some energy that I enjoy on it, and it's really cool. I like that it's a little bit quirkier than their last album. Their last album was already dialing up the notch in pockets, but I like that this just continues to throw themselves into different directions. I'm giving this another 8. I think they gave their last album an 8. I'm giving this one an 8. There's some tracks I don't like as much as others. Like, while I enjoy the leaner rock style on Pledge Drive, I don't like it as much when it comes up on Friends. And there's some tracks that I don't like as much as others, but it's still a really good album, and it's still one that I've enjoyed spinning over the last month. That'll be definitely still in my rotation like emphatically no is to this day.
Under my face, hand at my heels, at the end I'm winning this race, only thinking I chill.
The long-awaited collaboration of Black Thought and Danger Mouse, Cheekface, dropped recently. I love these two artists. You guys know I love Black Thought. You guys know probably. I love Danger Mouse by and large. And I feel like this could have been a recipe for success. And in my opinion, it very much is. I mean, Black Thought opens this fucking album with the spin of Prisoners of Azkaban, Thinking of a Master Plan, Images of Grandeur by Jamel Shabazz, Dapper Dan, Clap Your Hands, Whether You in Patterson or Pakistan. Bro! That's just some insanely fun rhyme spinning. And this project, by and large, has Black Thought dropping some fucking heat while repping Philly in the best way possible, like on parts of Cheekface and No Gold Teeth, while cementing you into some great imagery about some struggles that he's seen. I mean, he just goes off in the beginning of The Darkest Part, one of many great collaborations on this project. Raekwon's on The Darkest Part with Kid Sister. You got Russ and Joey Badass lending verses on Because, who enhance the images that Black Thought's laying down masterfully. I actually really like Russ and Joey on that track. I think they do a really good job. You got another posthumous Doom feature on Belize, which I also really enjoy. You got an insanely great posse cut with Strangers that has A$AP Rocky and Run the Jewels joining Black Thought on an insanely good beat. Don't even get me started on Saltwater with Conway and the Machine. Another insanely good track that is further proof that I need to actually listen to Conway's most recent album. The production on this album is just so good to me. I love how lush and smooth everything sounds. I enjoy this album so much. It's very much worth the wait to me. I think that it's fantastic. Checks so many boxes of shit that I think is good and that I enjoy in hip-hop. And I feel like if you enjoy the hip-hop records that I've given high praise to, you'll probably enjoy at least pockets of this project. I'm giving it a 9. I think that it's another fantastic release, and what I would argue is a pretty good year for the genre. I think that Black Thought came to play, I think Danger Mouse came to play, and I think that they achieved really good shit. You know, with this Silversun Pickups record, I didn't really know what to expect going into it, partially because while I enjoyed the back half of the first single, Scared Together, once it sort of breaks the funkier attributes, I really didn't think they wore like a funky style well on the first half of that track. But I really liked the second single, To Drop Alone on a Hill, much better, and for one, like that they gave Nicki a little more of a chance to sing on her own song, something that I've talked about liking whenever it crops up in pockets on records. I also liked the dreamier aspect that that song had and hoped that it cropped up more on the project, which it does in glorious fashion on the Dream at Tempo songs, with the one exception being the outright shoegazy explosion that is Dream at Tempo 310, but I think it comes in a good point on the record. And while I didn't like the funkiness on Scared Together all that much, I think that when they ramp up the energy but keep the groove in a good pocket, like on tracks like System Error and We Won't Come Down, the payoff is much better. I also think they find their own acoustic groove on Sticks and Stones a lot better than the groove on Scared Together. I mean, honestly, by and large, I think that this record has a decent amount of solid ideas going on. I'll just be honest, walking away from it, unlike a majority of the rest of the discography, I'm not sticking to quite as much as I did their last album, or obviously, like Neck of the Woods. I would equate this similarly to how I feel walking away from Better Nature. I feel like I do enjoy this record's highs better than the highs on Better Nature, and I feel like this cool hodgepodge of like shoegazy dream pop ideas with this groovy, almost dance punk adjacent sound melds really well with some of the mid-tempo acoustic / indie stuff that they were toying with on their last album, just in a bit more of a sonically clean palette that I also think sort of fits their style more than the Butch Vig production from their last album. I don't know. I'm really torn with this. I also feel like it just sort of dances around in some different pockets. While I like the sequencing in bits, I feel like there's parts where it gets a little muddled in itself. Like, as much as I enjoy the run from Dream Tempo at 50 through really Dream at Tempo 310, and I think that the album hits a really good stride in that pocket especially, I think that the album whimpers to a close a lot more so, with tracks like Quicksand and Stay Down being some of my least favorite that crop up on the album itself. I don't know, I enjoyed this record. I just feel like it starts and ends a little spottily with a decent middle chunk, which isn't common in music, but makes the listening experience all the more complicated to me personally. I'm giving it like a 6. It's fine. It's not my favorite thing. We'll see how much of this really sticks to me throughout the end of the year. Yeah, it's another solid outing from a band that I think still has some decent moments that they shine on each project.
Whole lot of fake ass, make ass, cake ass, hating ass, no money, getting ass niggas.
One of the things I like about Megan Thee Stallion as an artist is she keeps it very honest to herself. She doesn't compromise seemingly that much when it comes to like pulling together a project. You know, what I liked about her last record was that there were a good dose of bops and rap smashes, both of which I think she can ride the lines of very well. She had hooks that she did that spun together and were very infectious, even if sometimes they were a bit too repetitive. I was just hoping a refinement would happen with a follow-up in Traumazine, and while I feel like she keeps that honesty through and through, that problem still crops up of Megan not quite striking a good balance between both sides. You know, there are great rap cuts on here, and there are great pop cuts, but I feel like there's a little too much of both, and neither flow together as well as they may even have on Good News. You know, I enjoy a handful of the first run of the record with NDA and Ungrateful going really well together and keeping that honesty and that grittiness that Megan channels so well. I even enjoy the track with Lotto as far as another rap collaboration. I think that it makes sense that Lotto would be on a beat like this with Megan, and I think that both ride the beat very well and have good chemistry in a way that I was hoping to see, even if it's not quite the same palpable chemistry that she had with artists like Cardi B on WAP. But I still think that it's a decent track, and I think that that sample and that beat goes hard with how both of them are on it. I also think the piano loop on Gift and a Curse goes hard. And I also like the pop tip on tracks like Her and Miss Nasty, which has a little bit of like a Texan Houston bass line in it that I liked seeing, but I definitely wanted to see more when it was introduced in that cut. And I think it does come up in pockets like on Southside Royalty Freestyle, obviously. And there's a great melding of like old South and old East Coast mentality on Plan B that I think works relatively well. I also like her collab with Rico Nasty. I think that it's a pretty solid collaboration as well, and I think that she does a good job at... I would argue she has the best chemistry with Rico on the entire project. And when talking about the collaborations that I worked in the pop scene, I liked Sweet as Pie. I thought it was a solid jam when it came out. It feels kind of tacked on in the end, and I kind of wish it came up earlier in the track listing, but I'm glad to see it here. Same with the Jhené Aiko collaboration. I think that the two work well over the mood that is set by that instrumental. I think that where this record falls apart are what I would call similar issues to what I have with tracks like Body. While I like Her, and I think that the super repetitive hook of Her mirrors the catchiness of Body, I think tracks like Not Nice and Red Wine, and even Anxiety, for as honest as the writing is on that song, don't feel fully realized. They feel like sort of half songs with an idea that's really good there, but aren't quite as well-rounded enough as some of the other pop-leaning tracks on here. I don't know, I like this record, but it seems, oddly enough, caught in the same exact frustrations that I saw on Good News. I don't remember what I gave Good News, but I'm feeling with Traumazine like a 5. It's very alright. I just kind of wish some ideas were retooled, the pacing were done a little differently, and some songs were honestly just left on the cutting room floor. For as bright as this album shines, it's bogged down by too many of the missteps. This Muse album sucks, like, really badly. While I, sort of slam Simulation Theory for leaning too hard into, like, 80s nostalgia, Will of the People just leans way too hard into this, like, maximalism production and recycled chorus structure with the same, like, paranoid, anti-government lyrical twist that they've been really harping on since, like, 2007, 2008, but have been played out since Drones. This feels like all of the recycling of the bad ideas that Muse typically channel into something decent, with some of their most tired, lazy, overproduced jams to date. I mean, there really isn't a song on here that I think completely wins me over. The closest, I think, to a song that I think works to any modicum of degree, and even it is still a hot pile of shit, is You Make Me Feel Like It's Halloween. And it's only because the sonic palette of that song changes so drastically from the overproduced drums and guitars and the just everything that is the vocal layering on Matt Bellamy's voice that makes him sound less like a member of Queen and more like if ELO went way too hard on compression. It just has a little bit difference than the rest of it that feels interesting. But that's like saying, man, I'm really glad I found this burrito in this pile of shit. Well, yeah, I love burritos, but it probably is covered in shit, and it has the same shitty aroma that is seen in a pile of dung. I did not like this thing. Whenever I do a Muse discography review, better believe this is gonna be on the fucking bottom. I hated this album. I hated the experience I had with it. It has Museisms played out in the laziest degree, like Compliance and Liberation and Won't Stand Down. Will of the People commits the cardinal distaste of me with the stomp clap style of song production. So even when that kicked down the door, I knew I was in for an awful experience. This thing is one of the worst things I've heard all year. The fact that it ends on a song with We Are Fucking Fucked to really get right in your face and tell you just what's wrong when they've been doing that this entire runtime feels all the more arduous. This thing's like a 1 out of 10. I fucking hated listening to this album.
You can tell a nigga like me, amateur nigga like me, metaphysical things.
On the Forever Story, JID balances themes of familial unity, like on Crack Sandwich, an incredible story-driven song about an incident that happened with him and his siblings where they got into a fight at a bar. It's a banger of a tune with a fucking great beat switch up that actually has audio from that day in it, and that's fucking incredible. Further cemented on tracks like Brud and M and System M, which System M has an incredible usage of James Blake vocals. The vocals on that song when they come in is just fucking perfect. To his own struggles that him and his family have seen, like on Crack Sandwich a little bit, but also on Money, which is another banger, while also talking about things like his come up or, you know, trying to reach the stars, like on Stars, or on Radar, which actually talks more about the struggles seen in that process. He's also just got banger after banger after banger on here, like on Dance Now and Surround Sound. He's got great features all around. I talked a little bit about James Blake, but I think Yazi Bey is great on Stars. I think that Baby Tate and 21 Savage kill it on Surround Sound. I think Earth Gang goes hard on Can't Punk Me, which is another fucking great tune with some whirlwind flows. Cody Blue 31 is an incredible tribute to a friend that JID had that had died at a young age. This is just fucking great album. He's got his own look at his relationship problems, like on Can't Make You Change, which is a fucking great tune. This album just sees JID, similarly to other artists in hip-hop, really looking at themselves and who they are and deconstructing a lot of aspects of themselves without focusing solely on them. They talk about their family. They talk about their relationships. They talk about their own perspective in where they are in life. And it's a great version of that. I've talked about that a handful of times this year alone, but this is another great instance of that working very well in hip-hop. I think the production is so dynamic and shifting. You know, I talked about the bangers, but there's some great flute and lushness on a handful of tracks, like on Stars. When Better Days comes in, that's such a smooth fucking beat with subject matter that just mirrors that sincerity so well. I think Louder 2 is a fucking insane smooth closer. I just love this record a lot. Like, I think that it's got some great iconic moments. It's got some really good wordplay. It's got JID shining in his prime. Easily another instance of a potential rap album of the year. I'm giving it a 10. I really like the Forever Story. I think that it's an insanely well-constructed record with a lot of just great ideas mixed together in a pot and blends together so perfectly. I think that this is an insanely good album that should not be slept on. It's equal parts smooth and lush with just, again, banger after banger after banger. Don't sleep on it. I know no one is. People are already kind of hyped the fuck up on this, but I'm loving it too. Easily an album of the year contender, which is something I've said a lot this month alone. And those are the albums I listened to this month. What did you think about them? Have you listened to any of these? Is there any albums that I haven't listened to yet this year that you want to see me talk about? List them off in the comments down below. If you like this, give it a like. If you want to see more of my music, gaming, and general under content, be sure to subscribe. Special thanks to my patrons. If you want to join the ranks to get early access to content, exclusive content, or to help drive the community, it's linked in the description. I'm going to go, though. Thank you again so very much for watching. I've been Power Rack. You guys have good days, lives, and situations, and I'll see you another day.